Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Indeed, everything you learn about your body, we say, create the light. Love yourself. Love every molecule that is yours. It's not an egotistical thing to love the creative source so much that went into the miracle, which is you. The love of self we have talked about many times. And we've talked about it in a way that hopes to straighten out that from those who think that this is egotistical. It is not. You are loving the Creator in you. What do you think would be a fear? One of the greatest fears that so many have, even though they say they don't. If you have spent a lot of time working on this beautiful body of yours, if you've brought it to health, if you've had healing, if you're feeling light, if you are pleased with your life and peaceful with all that is, what would be the worst thing that could happen to you that you might fear? And that would be that it all stops. The word is death. Death is our final fear for this month. Now, when you speak to many light workers, they'll tell you this: I'm not afraid of death because I have a greater idea of what happens after I go. And that particular statement is very, very true, and they're very kind with themselves in saying it. And they're being accurate to a certain degree. But I'll tell you this, dear ones, no one of you wants to let go of the creative energy that is in you. Because at some times, all of these things will occur to you. Did I get it right? You know, there is no place where you can pick up a communication device and talk to those who have passed. Instead, you will have the intuitives who will help you with a channel that opens, where you can get not voices and not clarity, but intuitive signals, perhaps, to the other side of the veil. And all this comes together so that it doesn't seem to prove anything to anyone. There's no religion on the planet, no organized religion anywhere, who can point to the afterlife and prove it. All of these things in the doctrines that we've talked about, whether you're going to be punished or not punished, where do you go, what do you do? And this is all on purpose, dear ones, so that you cannot reach across and be certain. And that requires you to have faith. But more than that, it requires you to have intuitive thoughts about your own death. One of the greatest things that's going to happen in this shift will be that which is the increase in the science of longevity. And through the next few years, you're going to see ways of staying healthy longer, staying on this planet longer. And you're going to see a marked coordination between short life and fear, worry, and anxiety. And there will then be those set up to help clear those things specifically for you, so that you will not waste a life in so many short years by not understanding that what you think can create your own demise. And what you think can also create tremendous longevity, going way past the charts and graphs of any medical association or doctor, where they will look at you and they'll say, I don't understand why you're living so long, look so good, and why your body doesn't know you're older. That's what's going to happen. But in the meantime, it doesn't thwart that last fear. Did I get it right? when I pass over, what's the first thing that's going to happen? I want to return to the only evidence that truly has ever been seen, and it comes at a funny place. We have spoken of this before. We'll speak of it again, because the evidence comes right from the operating table. In hospitals and major institutions, where a person seems to have died, and their heart has stopped, and their body starts to be cold, the pronouncement is almost made when they're either resuscitated or by themselves, they come back to life. And when this person who has gone through that particular state, some call it near-death experience, we call it near-life experience because of what they saw and what they say. Quite often that patient will recover in the recovery room, face off with the surgeon, and in all seriousness and anger say, "Why did you bring me back?" And this has happened over and over and over. And when you say to them, "Why would you say such a thing? You're alive now and you were dead a moment ago," they will say, and I'll paraphrase it this way, they'll say, You didn't see what I see. Imagine taking that last breath and being transmitted and transformed into the most beautiful place you have ever imagined in your life, where everything is beautiful and perfect, and you realize you're with the Creator, you are back into your soul, and you are in the best place you could ever be, home. You start to hear that beautiful song being sung yet again that we have talked about, that is always there. It's always there. And the next moment, you're back in 3D with all the needles stuck into you and all the fluids pouring in and out. And you go into the recovery room. That would make anybody angry. Being ripped back from home. Ripped back from paradise, perhaps. Think about that. And think of the irony that that's one of the only places, truly, that over and over you get proof of something you didn't expect. Is there life after death? It's not that way, dear ones. It's not that you continue a life after you die here. You go home. You go to the natural state after having a trip to this planet that perhaps wasn't all that great to some of you. Perhaps it's been difficult for some of you. And then you go home. What can I tell you about death? I'll say that you are purposely programmed to fear it. But at some level, some of you have to know that it's okay. And the ones that I would speak to are anyone here, anyone listening, who would have this marginal fear or dreadful fear of their last breath. It isn't what you think. And perhaps in order to prove this to yourself, you should find the books to read or the reports from those who have gone through this and have had to come back. And I want you to feel the glory of it. Truly, magnificence, the splendor of going into the arms of your own home soul. Dear ones, all of you are programmed to stay. There is so much work on this planet to do. And I want to remind you of this. Why else would we have longevity start to increase? Some of the ages you read about in Scripture, hundreds of years being lived by some of the prophets and some of the masters. That wasn't a typo, dear ones. That was true. That's because they had that consciousness to keep their cellular structures healthy and alive and well and looking good for as long as they needed to be here to accomplish why they came. And suddenly, what is the task of all of you here now? And that is mastery. You start to pick up the wisdom of the masters so you can start living it. And the entire reason is to create a planet that is not always in trouble. We have told you that gradually things start to happen on the planet through wisdom, consciousness, new technology. New technologies that will not frighten you, but feed you and quench the thirst of a very thirsty population. That will do so many things that are wonderful, that you've always wanted, and the technology has always been there. That's part of the future. To make a healthy world, not an unhealthy world. A world that works with itself, even with the disagreements. They would not kill each other. A world of peace that works together to try to figure out things through the new wisdom. That is why you're here, to start that. And whatever you do that starts it, I'll tell you, it doesn't go away when you pass over. Because when you pass over and take that last breath and you dance into that paradise, I'll tell you what you do. You put on a new skin and come back and continue in even a greater way, remembering everything you've done, never making the same mistakes again, and continuing, only this time with much longer longevity, with youth, with health. There is a system here which is glorious. Do not fear death, dear ones. Do not. For it's just about going home and returning to love. I'm crying in love with humanity. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Each group of old souls has its own energy. Every single one. This one is unique as well. There is a camaraderie. There is a special family tie here. There are places on the planet where the old soul groups are reincarnate over and over in the same place, and we have said this before. There is a profundity in that system, for it creates a group that is more likely to know one another and have synchronicity with one another. There are other places in the planet that are just the opposite, where you will reincarnate into a culture you don't recognize and spend a lifetime coming back to the one you do. Each human being has their own schedule based upon what they choose when they're not here. Be aware the system is not that of the central source, it's that of the human being's part of the central source. You have a piece and a part of God in you which knows everything. When you're not here, you are part of that which is the creative source. With a wisdom beyond anything you can imagine, you reincarnate yourself in a special way, in a special place, with energies to deal with the planet yet again. And when you came in this time, there was the potential you would pass this marker that we have talked about, and here you sit having done so. This one was special. And in this area, there are many old souls who know one another and who will meet one another and do kinds of things with each other that are different from other places. It's a system of confluence, of consciousness. And it's beautiful. If you knew the whole scenario, you would understand that each soul knows the other at some level, in some way. You are so different, dear ones, and that is what it's supposed to be. Your worries and your fears are so different, and that's the way it's supposed to be. However, coming online, if you wish to use a modern term, is something that we have discussed just recently. And that is what we will call the template. A basic review is this. When the Pleiadians laid the groundwork for the seeding of humanity, giving them the peace of God that you have, esoteric seeding, you mixed your biology with them. The result was the DNA you have now, and inside it, the things that you cannot see, that are quantum and dynamic, and carry with it those seeds of God. We told you last time that one of the things that the original creation template had was that human beings would awaken as human beings with dark and light awareness and search first for the Creator. No other animal on the planet searches for the Creator. It's not simply the elevated intellect of a human being that allows this, it's the template. And as proof of this, I give you that. Over 85% of this planet believes in the afterlife in some way. That cannot be an accident, it cannot be chance, it does not fall into the bell-shaped curve. It was designed and planned that way, and the template was yours. We told you that the template also included that energy and system which you call karma. The template was real, it was needed, it is your template. It has been the same template until now. The time capsules of this planet created the template through processes that you are not aware of, that are grand and beautiful, that are quantum-based, that is to say multidimensional, and that come right from the creative source. Would it interest you to know that the Pleiadians are not just creatures from another part of the galaxy? They have their DNA working at over 80%. They're almost angelic. In their physics of consciousness, they don't need crafts to travel to other places. They use what you call the process of entanglement, already seen by your physicists, where physical objects can be in two places at the same time. This is not beyond your reasoning. It is simply beyond your normal experience. And they gave this planet several attributes that you use today. This template that they gave you is not a controlling template. It's an influential one. It pushes that which makes you think certain ways and gives you free choice about what you decide about them. I want to talk about the new template, and that is why we are here. You crossed this marker. A bridge was crossed in consciousness. And we will tell you, you can't uncross that bridge. And whoever doubts this, who leaves this room, history is going to show it. Humanity is different. You're going to leave behind some of the oldest propensities of the template. You're going to leave behind the idea of conquering and greed and conspiracy and power. It takes time, dear ones, sometimes generations, to rebirth consciousness. For one generation to see the folly of what they did the time before. to realize there are better ways to accomplish that which you really desire, which is health, celebration of happiness on this, and lifespans that you have not had before. The ability to get along with the rest of the planet. And you will have different ideas and different spiritualities, and yet you'll have tolerance to get along. And you will see that as the prime directive, for that will create what you always wanted, not war. We've told you before, the consciousness is so startlingly different that there'll come a time in history when you look backwards and everything that was before 2012 will be the barbaric age. This is where it's going, and you are beginning it now. This is year 2. I'll say it again. Have you met any 2-year-olds? And what was your impression? This is where you are. You're just learning. You hardly know what it feels like. And yet there are old souls who have been through this on other places who are so anxious and so impatient because they know where it's going that they're frustrated. When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And the only reason that you're so impatient, dear ones, is because you've seen it and you know what can happen. No wonder you're impatient. It's so different. We told you before, don't expect a utopia. Humans will always be humans. There will always be those who will go to low consciousness with free choice, but they will be the minority, not the majority. Human nature will be that which is prevalent on the planet, and it will be different because of this new template. The template, as described and defined, it helps you to think differently. It pushes you to awareness. Internal, subconscious suggestion that you may ignore or not with free choice. This planet looks for the Creator and has found it. A monotheistic planet. Spiritual belief systems are everywhere. It's the first thing you notice when you go and travel. What is the belief system here? What is it over here? There's always one. Against all odds, the planet believes in God. That's a template. The new template is going to work with several things, but some of them you're going to recognize, some of them you already know, but I have to list them anyway. This new template is beautiful. I should tell you there are 3 more templates coming. This is just the beginning. There are no markers to pass, but there are places where literal inventions will make a difference in what you're aware of and what you do next, and a new template will be needed for you to think beyond where you were before. These are templates of awareness. And the very fact that you have a new one being broadcast from the nodes and the nulls, you should celebrate, because there are those who said it would never, ever happen. The template starts to recognize what we channeled recently, which is the triad. The triad is the new consciousness that involves the 3 parts of consciousness that we channeled about specifically. They are the brain, the intuition, and the heart. Those 3 represent the triad of consciousness. We talked before, you consider your brain as the central of everything. Your brain simply facilitates all of the energies of consciousness. It does not originate them. The brain originates that which is survival. Intuition and innate together, hooked to the Akash and the higher self, are then also processed by the brain, only you see them as differently and they feel different.
And now we add that which science is starting to see as a player of consciousness, as an organ you think simply pumps blood, and it's the heart. The heart has the highest magnetic field of any organ, including the brain, in the body. There is more nervous activity in the heart for some strange reason than anywhere else, and it almost is seen by some science as the second brain. The heart is responsible metaphorically for compassion, and it is. The new template will increase the triad's efficiency in your body. That is why the new human being is going to be more compassionate. You're going to be born that way. The empathy for other creatures just like you on the planet is going to drive you into peace. You will not send soldiers to be killed who are your sons and your daughters. None of you will. The idea will be abhorrent. No matter what is on this planet, you will not turn to that. It's barbaric. It is not what humans do. I promise. Every planet has gone through this. And that's where you're going. Hard for you to understand what we're talking about with this triad. A different way of thinking, where intuition and the heart start to play a major part of thought and not the survival brain. You passed the marker. You've come out of the cave of survival, and now you are into elegance. And the triad will be then increased in its efficiency. Along with the DNA, a compassionate soul will start to be born. It's already happening. Your grandchildren are far too compassionate for their age. And you know it. They look at other children who don't have what they have, and the first thing is they want to give away what they have to them. A compassionate soul does not happen at that age with the old human nature. In fact, children on the playground often take from one another instead of give. This is different. Take a look. It's already begun. That was number one. Number two is something called self-balance. My partner teaches it. It has already been on the agenda and taught this very day. But it's on the template because it is not necessarily something that all old souls have. Some of you are not self-balancing and you know it. Something will happen. Perhaps it's chemically, perhaps it's psychologically, perhaps it's even Akash that will push a button in your brain that will create an issue that then you have to have solved by another light worker. This has been common. It comes from an old energy paradigm. And it comes from one which is honored, and that is what healers and light workers are for. Suddenly this one has the old soul self-balancing. You're your own guru. You can see within yourself. It is a designed human attribute that now comes forward for that which is spiritual survival. Self-balance. No matter what happens, if you wait just a little while, it will return to a peaceful state. This is good news for some of you who have gone back and forth and swung the pendulum of emotions. There are many light workers who need to hear this, because their lives, even though a mature old soul, have their buttons pressed from other reasons, even Akashic ones. It means that you have the ability to live a more peaceful life every day. You awaken in the morning, instead of worrying about things to come, you have an overwhelming peace of self-balance knowing that you'll deal with them one at a time with wisdom. It is self-worth, dear ones. And it's about time. I want to cover just briefly some of the other areas of the template, and they all deal with innate. Innate is the new teaching we have given you before. It has been called the smart body. Innate is that part of your body which knows what's happening corporally, is connected to the Akash, knows about the triad and the heart, knows of the pineal, even knows of the higher self. It is part of the consciousness of you. It is not your subconscious, it's innate. It is a part of your body that is esoterically taught. That is to say, it is new. However, it is also one that many know about, for they muscle test with it all the time, using that which you call kinesiology to discover more that you don't know with your brain. So let me discuss the bridge that is going to start being increased in the innate. The first is the obvious one, and we've taught it. And we'll get through this quickly, dear ones, because we want to teach the others. The human body, the corporeal body, is still a mystery to your consciousness. As odd as it seems, you don't know what's going on inside. And you will. This is the main bridge that's going to be crossed little by little. Human beings will start to be more aware of what is happening inside them in a corporeal fashion. And the proof will be this. You will have intuitive flashes, and you will get a checkup because of it. And there will be discoveries that you will catch so soon the doctors will say, "How did you know?" It's up to you to tell them. This is your innate starting to cross the bridge to the triad. The consciousness, not necessarily even the brain. The heart, the intuitive part of you, facilitated by the brain, will increase the bridge of knowledge between that which is conscious and that which is innate, allowing you, very slightly at first, to have intuition about what's going on in your body. Slowly, generation after generation will show that human awareness is increasing about what is going on inside. You can count on it. The second nose will be passed to the child. Now, we are not going to talk out of turn here. There are a series of channelings we have given for what is called the sisterhood. The sisterhood represents those in Lemuria in a certain time frame, what we will call the last Pachacudi of Lemuria. And those channelings are public, and you can hear them. So what I'm going to tell you now is not confidential. Because if you pass from innate to that which is happening to you corporally as a human being when you're born, you're also going to pass something else. You are in the womb of the mother, sharing the life's bloodstream for all of those months. And part of what you will have, therefore, in this increase is the increase in the mother's consciousness passed to you. Whether it's male or female, the compassion of the female mother will play a more important part because of this instinct than ever before. And you will be born with a different attitude. My partner, I'm not really sure you said that correctly. The template is going to work so you're more compassionate. Could it be clearer? And it's going to happen because instinct of that which is your mother is going to be part of you. And your mother's instinct is compassion. She's a female. And she's going to carry a different kind of consciousness for this planet. And the planet's going to change because of it. Clear? Innate is responsible. There are so many. You're going to be more in touch with Akash. This is the third innate in the series. And the fourth attribute of the day. Perhaps it's even the fifth. Depends how you count these. You're going to be more aware of the Akash. Right now, the Akashic record in your DNA is responsible for irritating you. Because it's not working well. All you remember from your Akashic record are things that are dramatic. A past life drowning, a death, carries over the veil when you're born for only one reason, because it is the same level of consciousness you are. Human nature responds to death and drama, and that's what you get from the innate. Now you're about to grow up. And as this starts to grow, your Akash is going to pass the things that really, really made a difference. Some of the most beautiful experiences you've ever had, you'll dream about them. Oh, you're going to wake up and wish you hadn't, because they were so good. And you'll start remembering them. They will shape what you do next. You'll remember celebration and joy and good things that took place with you. All this is a change in the way the Akash responds to the template. A compassionate template for an evolved human being. I'll call this the last one. You're going to have a greater relationship with Source. How can I tell you this? Right now, as you sit in the chair listening to me, there's a relationship. And it's not really a believable one, is it? You report to a room, a man sits in a chair, his conscious leaves him, and in his body there's a beautiful entity as you feel it. I say it's a brother or sister who comes and gives you instructions. That's your relationship. And for a few minutes you might enjoy actually the feeling that I give you when I hold out my hand to you and say, let's just join hands for a minute. You can talk to Creator, all right? That's going to change. Your relationship with that which is your higher self, directly relating to that which is the creative source, is something created by the template and the new innate. You're going to know who you are. And when you're born, and as you start to grow, there'll be no question that you're part of creation. How you treat it may be a mystery. What you do with it is your free choice, always free choice. But there'll come a day when you don't wonder if there's a God. You're going to wonder what part of it you are. And there are those who are so impatient because you've been there and done that and you know I'm right. And you can hardly wait. That's the new template. Oh, there's more. But for now, it's enough. This is what I want to give you. To some, it's far-fetched. For some, you'll have no proof of it while you're on earth. For some. Free choice and discernment. And how you react to this message literally will shape what you do next. How much power over your own life and your own body do you really think you have? The more you believe you can change it, the higher your DNA will cooperate with you and will do the things you tell it to. Dear ones, that's how much power you have. I am Kryon. I will not tell you things that are not so. I know it's a double negative. I will always tell you things that are so. But I want you to know there's no agenda except love. And that's a big one. For it then defines the compassion of God, which you are starting to assume. And so it is.
Okay, so big breath in and out. Continuing to feel the opening that you've created this weekend. The opening for love. The opening for your heart. And relax into the knowing that you're supported in this. That each and every one of our hearts and souls is supported and loved. And that we are not alone in this journey. That we have an endless supply of light around us and also within us when we turn it on. And Kryon, the star mothers, the entourage, all celebrate us each moment. Each time we say yes to being divine, we are celebrated. Each moment we say yes to being loved, we are celebrated. Each moment that we heal, that we surrender to the path before us that is guided so beautifully by Spirit, we are celebrated. Take a breath. Let yourself feel what it is like to be honored as the human here, opening the portal to their divinity.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. "30 years ago, I came to my partner in a very cryptic way. To him it was frightening, but he got over it. There are those who would ask the man, the engineer, what was the turning point? When you had all of the logic that said this could not be. You had all of the fear from those around you who had said, be careful, it's evil. And yet you went anyway. What was the transition? What convinced you? I'll tell you this, I knew the man well enough to know what would win him over. He wasn't ready for it. No amount of logic can ever surpass love. It cannot. And when he sat in the chair over and over, he had the most amazing love wash he had never had before, ever. In his younger days, indeed, he went to organized religion, and he found love there. He found love there, kept him there. But he never experienced anything like Spirit could give him. When he sat in the chair all alone,
And that's what convinced him above logic. Love has no logic. Dear ones, you know, you can't explain it. And we've said it before. It's kind of funny to think about it. Two people, one staring into the eyes of the other, they're both taking a deep breath, and one says finally to the other, I love you. And the other one says, what do you mean by that? Would you explain it? And you don't. You can't. And you wouldn't. You all know that even human love has attributes that are so beautiful. It can cause anxiety at certain levels where you cannot sleep at night. There's too much love. Falling in love is the most beautiful things that humans can do. And you can do it with each other, and you can do it with an animal, and you can do it with God. Falling in love is almost eyeball to eyeball. It's a relationship that you have that you can't explain. You can't explain it. Some people may ask you what happened at this meeting, and you can't explain it. You might say, well, I learned something. And when they say, well, what do you learn? It's tough, isn't it? What if you learned that love is so big that it changes your own heart with you? What if love was so big that it goes beyond anything you can even explain to anybody? But you come out feeling different. What would happen if all of a sudden you found that you had something that you never thought you had before, that you were loved in a way you never thought you were loved before? You'd take pause, perhaps. You'd think about it, and some would even weep in gratitude. It's not that God loves you. I'll tell you about oneness yet again. If Spirit, God, is the master creator, the master physicist, the master biologist, the one who has orchestrated life on this planet, then that entity, that beautiful consciousness, knows every plant, every weed, every leaf, every grain of sand on the earth. Not just in a linear way, but in a multidimensional way. The creator of it all. And you can't just say, well, I discovered that God loves me. I'll tell you what you discover. In the oneness of everything, you discover that everything loves you. Have you ever met a tree hugger? Oh, I'm sorry, there are some here. And perhaps you were a tree hugger before you ever got interested in anything spiritual. Perhaps you were the ones that said, well, you know, my spirituality is in the forest. That's where it begins. Because you go into the forest and you feel the unconditional love of nature for nature. You realize you're part of the system of nature. And when you walk next to the tree, some of you can feel the consciousness of the age, of the wisdom, of nature itself. And you say, I'm home. This is where I should be. This is where I belong. And this becomes your church. And rightfully so. It is the beginning of the understanding of oneness. If you ask the tree hugger, does the forest love you? And the tree hugger would say, that's why I go there. Yes.
I can go there for solace, and I can breathe the air, and I can feel the love of all things. And even if you weren't spiritual, I'll tell you, you felt the love of God. How do you explain to anybody if you suddenly have a realization, aha, an awareness, an awakening, that to be loved by the Creator is to be loved by every piece of matter in the universe? There is an experience when you walk into the woods, tree hugger, and you know it, that says not only you are one, but there's caring there. The caring is that you are part of the system. And the forest does not then point at you and say, stay away, you're evil. The forest welcomes you. The trees breathe and they give you oxygen. One of the most amazing experiences to walk into the rainforest. We've said this before, the greatest creation of oxygen comes from that which you call moss. There's more of it growing than there are leaves. And it coats the trees in the rainforest. When you walk in there, you feel so good. You are over-oxygenated. That's what you're feeling. Why would they give you so much oxygen? Dear ones, this is the lifeblood of your system. You oxygenate when you walk into the forest. The trees are greeting you in a certain way that says, you're welcome, you're welcome. And if you could at least begin to transfer that in the civilization that you live in the culture that you live in, even if you're mid-city and you cannot see bushes or trees for a long distance, even if your feet cannot touch dirt and they're only on cement, I will tell you this, that you can be in the forest. Because the very air that you're breathing came from the trees and the moss who say, I know you, I love you. And you are one with all things. And that is part of the creative source. Can you understand oneness to the degree that to be loved by God is to be loved by every piece of matter anywhere? The Creator's matter knows your name. And this is why we had said so many times to those who look at God dimly through a glass in an older energy and paint a picture of what they understand from only their own experience, God then becomes a parent. And the only examples they've ever had of parenting is their own. And all through history then, God becomes a human parent. It's as good as it gets because they cannot fathom anything more than that. And you see the result of it because God has then become a dysfunctional parent to so many. The God who loves you beyond measure is the God who will then punish you beyond measure. It doesn't make sense. But there's no judgment in this because this came from an older energy. Before the energy started to develop and enhance itself so that you could see a little clearer through that veil. And the first thing you saw through the veil was not punishment or anger, but light. There are criticisms of those who believe what they believe in this very room, listening to this channel. And when they say you have no substance, you have no prophet, and you have no doctrine. So you just float around in la-la love land. God bless the floater. Because that floater has not just a tree hugger, he's a God hugger. One who understands that a prophet is not really necessary if you can emulate the Creator itself.
And so you don't walk around like little gods. You create a oneness of the one God, and you participate in the beauty of it. And in the participation of the beauty of it, there then comes wisdom. And the wisdom starts to grow. The man in the chair 30 years ago had no idea about today. And in that growth that he had to learn to get out of the way of himself. He had to learn the difference between channeling information and ego. He had to make up his mind how he had to survive in the channeling experience. And it's different, dear ones, than if you were to survive in a channeling experience. He had love pouring into him, so strong that he couldn't talk. He couldn't think. And so he started writing it down instead because it was safer. He was afraid of what people would think. He made finally the books he had, and he made his name small enough that no one could see it, and he put it on the back. That was fear. It took him years to go beyond that. The human has to get out of the way and practice getting out of the way, and it takes practice over time. But I'll tell you what happens. The body starts to understand what you're doing. Dear ones, as you sit in front of me, are you aware that if you start the progress and the process of progress, of enlightenment, the body knows what you're doing? Every cell was made by the Creator. The patterning of the Creator is in you. Your innate knows who God is and your higher self is. All the things that you claim are higher within you are part of that creative source that you're trying to get to and understand better. And when you start the process, the body understands. And it starts to then give you an allowance for understanding. That's what happened to the man in the chair 30 years ago. That over time, he began to recognize the difference between himself and his consciousness and the pure consciousness that comes from the other side of the veil. And whereas in the beginning he was confused and had no idea, and his channeling was cryptic, didn't flow with long spaces, when he tried to channel in front of others, he sweat. So nervous, so anxious, working so hard. And then there was a time when it got easier and it got better for him. And then there was the time when he could finally relax and understand the difference. And then, a little over a decade ago, when I said to him in the shower, "Are you ready to go to the next level?" I could see his mind working and the great disappointment that he had when I asked him that, because he thought he was at the highest level. You ask linear questions, you always do. How can I do this? How can I do this? What do I do about the duality? What do I do about this and that? Never understanding that you're working too hard. You don't have to do much at all except to accept this wonderful meld that's coming your way through an evolved consciousness and through your innate that says, how would you like to walk all the time in a form of channel? And that form would be your higher self comes in and stays in. You know what meditation is? It's an effort to touch that part of yourself And in that part, you age less because you breathe correctly and all of that. And the longer you can stay in meditation, you know that, the better things are. And that, dear ones, is accurate and true in an older energy. Today, I will tell you the truth. That meditation is the attempt to get to that meld that my partner is in right now and stay there. You can do this by yourself without the effort of the meditation, and it's always there. You wake up with it, you go to sleep with it, because it becomes you, a constant state of awareness of what is around you and touching the other side of the veil. We have admonished those who call themselves New Age to stop chasing people away, to stop being strange and weird. And there's a reason why some of you do that. And that is so you be left alone. In your own way, to worship in your own way, to be your own spiritual person and not have those bother you. And now we have told you so many times, you accept this meld. You won't be weird. You'll walk around and you will look not only normal, but beyond normal. You'll have a love quotient, which is more than most have. And you'll be seen as loving and wise and safe to most people. The attributes of the masters who walked this planet is they were safe. People could approach them. They wanted to be with them. There was no competition of conversation. The masters of this earth had something in common, all of them. They listened. And when they listened, those who would talk to them knew they were getting through, and they were being loved every moment that they were being heard. This is the new human. The tree hugger doesn't have that not that much wrong with that, you know. That's almost all the way there. Without any spirituality, the tree hugger has it all. Now you add to that the knowledge of the spiritual soul that is involved, that you are. And now you know why the forest greets you. Did you know that Gaia was created for you? There are those who believe that humans are the worst things that ever happened to Gaia. You'll get over that, and you will learn the partnership as you stop polluting. But a truth that you should know is this, is Gaia was created for you. That's your best friend, this planet, and all that it represents. And it's so close to the higher self that you want to touch. I close this message again with the knowledge that I'd like to give you and the wisdom I would like to give you. It says this: you are part of the system of beauty on this earth. You never, ever came to suffer. An old energy system will tell you that because that's all they knew. Be the ones to start something new. And that new something is self-sufficient God within, oneness with all things that brings you to wisdom and a place of balance where anxiety and worry for you personally has got to get into the back seat. Because what you emanate in a meld with spirit is beautiful and light-based. And that will be your normal. The pendulum is swinging from dark to light on this planet and illuminating so many things that are inappropriate. Let this be the same with you. And in that, you will see the inappropriate things in your own life And you can drop them like a hot potato. You can go the other direction because you will be supported in that decision, and every cell of your body will know it. The trees will know it. The air you breathe will know it. Creation will know it. Let it be so. Leave differently than you came. And so it is. And so it is. It is. It is.
So with that, let's go into a meditation and hear a little more from Kryon. And I invite you to close those beautiful, precious eyes of yours and allow yourself this moment to be completely internal moment for you, free of distraction from anything that was happening during the day and free of distraction from anything that is going to come after this program. Just let all of those thoughts go into the background. You can still observe them if your mind wants to be busy with thoughts and intellect, but don't attach yourself to those thoughts. Just let them come in and go out. And the more you can keep your eyes closed and focused on the inside, the more your body can start to relax and realize that you deserve to have this moment where you can reconnect with the core essence that is within you. That unconditional love you feel from animals, it comes because it's connected in you. It doesn't come from the animal. They're just a conduit of you connecting with that essence of love that's inside of you. And so let's allow that to blossom by taking time whenever we need it to come back to that core essence of who we truly are. It can just simply be closing your eyes and doing deep breathing, and just remind yourself to do that regularly through the day if it's needed, particularly when you're with certain people that pull you away from that core source of love that's within you. And from this beautiful posture of love, let us now move into a channel from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. There are so many of you who have asked the question, how much influence do I have? And so many of you are asking about yourselves, not just the planet. Some who are esoteric thinkers say this: how much influence can I have as an old soul about the baggage I came in with? This is a subject, and it's all about what some are calling the Akash. If you've not heard this before, it's a very popular subject these days, and even psychologists are beginning to realize that you come in with certain kinds of influences that are seeming to be baked into your consciousness, that they didn't come from anything you experienced on the planet. Somehow your personality comes in a certain way, and then it's also shaped by what you experience. If you're an esoteric thinker, if you believe perhaps in past lives, like 2/3 of the world does, you realize that there is a system called the Akashic Record. What happens in certain past lives seems to then come in with you, and there's a reason. Some have called it karma, and we have told you before that this is something in this new energy that we've asked you to drop completely. It's no longer needed. But you still have that which is the Akash. And the Akash is what you have experienced in past lives that comes in with you. In the past, this has a reason, so that you will then settle it, or perhaps act on it, or do something different to dismiss it. That has been the thinking, and it's been for centuries. This has started to shift and change. There are those who would be critical of that statement and say, no, these are bases of some kind of axioms of esoterics. They never change. They do change, dear ones, because you change. If the energy of consciousness is becoming more benevolent and the shift on the planet is before you, do you see how that would then change how you learn and what you learn with? And so what I'm going to tell you, I have said before, but you need to hear it again. How influential can you be on the baggage you bring in with you? Sometimes that baggage controls your life and you don't even know it. Lifetime after lifetime, perhaps, of sorrow. Lifetime after lifetime of dying early, perhaps, and you come in not expecting much from the planet. You come in and you don't smile much, very serious, wanting to know when the other shoe is going to drop. That's what it creates. And that's just something you come in with. And that's something that your parents deal with and your teachers deal with. And yes, your spiritual leaders deal with. How to get beyond that which seemed to be baked in to a consciousness when it arrived. That's the Akashic record. How much influence do you have on that? What I'm going to tell you next is known by the ancients' masters. You have full influence. I want to take you to a place in India called Varanasi. And for hundreds of years, in a teaching about karma, the Akash, they know that if they go to the river there and bathe in it, the belief is this, that they can influence that which was baked into them when they came, the Akash, the karma. And they can be free of it to a certain extent, so that they can proceed with their lives, or the next time around it'll be different. In other words, their belief is what I'm telling you. So for those who are critical of this message, that you have power over your Akashic baggage that you bring in, I'll tell you this, it's not a Kryon statement. This is historic. It's part of the belief system of millions and millions of people already. But this may be new to you. How much influence do you have over what you think is something that is part of you and never will go away? The answer is this. This is a new energy on the planet. I've talked about it already. My partner has talked about it even in this program. We are going to start to see a change in what some call the light and dark quotient. Right now, even as I give this message, there are some listening to this perhaps for the first time who say, what is he talking about? There's war. We haven't had war for a long time. Suddenly there's war, and Kryon says it's getting lighter. I'll say it again if you haven't heard it. Isn't it interesting that we suddenly have a war? Who expected that? And the answer is, this is from those who wish to pull us backwards. Pull you backwards, pull us as your guides backwards into a very old energy of war on this planet. It's the old circle of time. That's what you're seeing. And you also have seen the reaction to it from the planet. This is all new. Are you seeing this? If you're only simply seeing the news and seeing the horror of war, you've missed it. There's something bigger going on. This energy, this lighter energy, is going to be of compassion and kindness like never before. A world that's starting to see one another as they see their family, instead of some foreign individuals in a foreign culture with a foreign language. The internet has really helped that. But more than that, the collection, the coherence of consciousness, where you start to see one another so differently than you've ever seen each other before. And in that, there are new tools. The tool set that I'm talking about is the one that's starting to blossom in every human being. The DNA is changing, and we've told you that before. Some of you are starting to accept it, realize it, and move forward with it. Some who have felt nothing is possible in my life, I cannot change who I am or what I am, are starting to have an inkling to change your mind about a tool set that you might have that you never felt you did before. And you do. You really do. And part of that tool set is to fully and completely change that which you came in with that might affect your life. And the next question, and I know those of you who are listening and saying, okay, I believe that. It's true. How? Those in India said, well, you go to a certain place and do a certain thing. It's actionable things, and it still is. But you don't have to go to India. You don't have to bathe in the river. And even those things are limited compared to what you can do today. Would you like to drop inappropriate karmic things? Drop inappropriate, I will say for the time, Akashic remembrances. We have given you examples of this. The Circle of 12 has done the same thing. But I'll tell you this, there is so much power in intent. If you're really interested, you can start that process. Your intent to do so is seen as permission for you to change that was inside your DNA. That's where it's kept. I've told you that. Did you know that pieces and part of your DNA come with you from past lives, carrying certain things, the Akashic record for one? What do you do? Dear Spirit, I have intent to drop these things that I don't need anymore in this lifetime. Can you say that? Dear Spirit, right now, I am dropping those things that do not propel me into kindness and compassion and keep me from joy and peace. Dear Spirit, I am in charge of my own biology. My soul and I together drop the inappropriate things that would get in the way of peace, joy, compassion, and happiness, or the rest of my life. I now have that power, that ability, and I'm doing that in front of all who wish to watch. I am changing my DNA. And with that, I proclaim a new lightness of spirit, a new kind of kindness for myself, which will occur. One where I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I am indeed beautiful in the eyes of all that is, because I have God inside, because I no longer have a stone to carry around or pull me backwards. I am that I am. That is your power today. An empowerment that we are telling you is new and different and belongs to you. That is your lineage. That is why you came. Congratulations, dear ones, on what you are becoming. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The element that is studied today is water. And we'll just tell you that that is water, is life. And if there's any kind of a metaphor that would say, what does the element of water mean metaphorically to the human being? It is life itself. Life. You've had that which is the soul, you've had that which is consciousness, but life, how do you weigh the importance of that element? But beyond that, dear ones, you've already discovered that water in crystallized form will show the effect of love and compassion, consciousness. You already know that. There are those in this room who know about that which is the energies that are esoteric of the human being. Energies that were known from the ancients and processes that are used today, taking advantage of them. that Western medicine is just now discovering. So you also know the power of consciousness and how it changes the energies, how energies can be then altered by the way a human being thinks about themselves. There are those who use energy work who have discovered a long time ago that there are human beings who can sit and endure it and have no change, and then there are human beings who can sit and accept it and embrace it that will be healed. So what does that tell you about the meridians? Do they just sit there and do their thing, or are they like antennas that pick up the intent and the consciousness of the human being, amplify it, and go into the places that are designed for them to go into, and affect that which is at the cellular level, life itself, the water? Every process you can think of in this room that you have done or you may be an expert in seems to also know who you are when you do it. It's almost like it tunes in to the human being who is part of it all. If you go away with nothing from this series, I want you to remember this one thing. You are powerful. More than just powerful. You are selectively powerful. That is to say, you can design who you are. You can design the diseases you catch and heal. And how you think and what you perceive will lay upon you like a book. Like you can open it and read who you are. I'm afraid of this. I'll catch this. Or I'm going to survive no matter what because I will not catch this. I will not do this. This will not attach itself to me. I am a healthy person. My cells all agree. They cooperate. I know who I am. They know who I am. Which book is yours? No time in history is this more prevalent and more exciting than now. More is happening than you know. The shift that you have gone through at 2012 starts to move so many things, and it is incremental. So slow is it you may not even understand that it's moving. You'll have new processes and new ways to measure them. You'll start to see that which is the body's energy itself start to cooperate with the energies of the consciousness of the human being who is using them. You'll start to see something we've told you before, and that is a move away from that which you've had, which you call allopathic. That there will be no more cures as you think of them, but more like healings and reversals as you design them. Instead of taking a pill that then is going to change some chemistry and at the same time perhaps have side effects, there's going to be a purity of consciousness imbued into whatever device you think, if any at all, put inside the human being, esoterically perhaps with consciousness or otherwise, and the body will recognize it. What do you call homeopathy? Is it a pill? No. It's a signal. The difference should be obvious. Homeopathy is not a drug. It's a signal. It's a signal that is designed to talk to that which is your innate. Your body sees the design, the message is complete, and the healing begins. What does the homeopathy tincture carry that is so remarkable? And why would a signal demand the body do something? And the answer is that with the signal that tells the body what to do, there is the instruction from the boss. That's you, because you are the one who put it under your tongue. And it was your intent imbued upon that which is the tincture. You're the boss talking to yourselves in a way, perhaps, that the ancients always knew about. When you do acupuncture, what are you really doing? Is the energy in the meridians, in the needles, in the esoterics of it? Or is it a signal? Using that which is the energies. And the signal is instructions. I know you're there, this is the meridian, this is what it does, and it comes from the intent of the one that is able to sit through it and say, it is my body, this is what I want. All of these messages being given to the human body, right to the life source, right to the water. What do you know about water? You can restructure it with consciousness. What do you know about the human bonding of the water to life itself? You can change it with consciousness. What have you already discovered through the ancient processes that I've just mentioned? Healing. Instructions to the body. I want you to start seeing something. That there are more of these than you know. The affirmations that you're now speaking out loud is part of the issue of bringing it out and letting the ears hear it, let it go into the consciousness and affect who you are. Meditation itself is so strong now because it's the human being with the intent giving instructions, not just energies, not just prayers. Do you see the difference between praying for something and instructing? Is it possible you can instruct the planet? Is it possible you can instruct yourselves? With all of this, do you think perhaps you could increase your lifespan? Stop aging to the degree that you are. A body ages because it doesn't have instructions. Are you listening to me? The body ages because it does not have instructions. You'll say, this is silly. The body ages naturally because of the way it rejuvenates or does not, because of the telomeres shortening, because of this and that. And I'll tell you, dear ones, it will do what it does if you just sit there and watch it. And that's the default of the way a body works without instructions. But when you start instructing it, then you give it the blueprint of how it reproduces and how it regenerates and how it chases away the inappropriate things. I'm telling you, you're in control. No more than any time in history, you are in control now. It's a greater way than you think. There's more going to be given. But I'll tell you this. I want you to look to the ancients and your ancestors. They had things that you've thrown away. Wisdom that you do not necessarily want to look up and read. Ways of getting along. Old adages and sayings that are so profound that you've cast away on the floor. Ceremonies that worked because the ones who did the ceremony were of like mind and understood what they were doing. Kryon, are you saying we should do ceremony? Yes, you should do it in your own way, in a modern way perhaps, maybe even at the office. Do you think something like that is possible? And the answer is yes. When human beings discover something that works, they'll do it and ask questions later. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. Compassion in the workplace. This is what's going on in so many places around this planet that is unreported, that you don't know about. It will be years before the news will ever pick that story up.
Not enough drama, you'd say. And yet it is the most dramatic thing that's happening on this planet. And it will eventually create compassion and peace where there wasn't peace, negotiation between countries that looks far different than it ever did before. That's coming. And for now, we say to you, dear ones, that you are needed to remain peaceful for what you see, to be better knowing and have better knowingness and consciousness and things that would frighten other people, and you know better. And you would say, this is not what it seems. Be peaceful. For your balance will then affect the others around you. And then in the end, they will come to you and say, you were right. Perhaps I should listen more. Perhaps I should look up that which is my ancestry and listen to them more. Perhaps I had to research what they believed and listen to that more. That's enough for now. And so it is. Of magnetic service. You study air, the fourth element. Here's another element which seems to be invisible. You can see it clearly. The wind carries it. It is the wind. But in general, it is something that is precious to you. You need it for life. Even more than water. You need it constantly, every moment. And there's an alliance in air with Gaia. If you would look at the metaphor in the human body, what would air be to you in this esoteric metaphor? Let's call it your silent life friend. Something that is invisible, something you take for granted, something you need every moment of every day. And when it's gone, you're aware of it. And you cannot survive. My partner today speaks of things that are hidden. They are hidden in history. And the more you learn about them, the more you know about the magnificence of not only yourselves, but of your ancestry. We told you that on this planet today, that the wisdom keepers, which I will say are the ancients with a capital A, they have that which is missing in the Western world. They carry the wisdom from the past. And the indigenous know it. And that is why the indigenous honor the ancestors, listen to the ancestors, and have stories passed down from them that they continue to teach to their children. It's a wise culture that will take the ancients and make it a part of the teaching of the little ones. And that is not what you've done. What if you could extend this? Who were the ancients before the ancients? And that is the study of the stars. The ones in the galaxy before you. Is it possible that their wisdom is also in you? And then you'd have to ask the question, well, where did you really come from? Is it possible that you, as a human soul, are an extension of what has been before Earth had life? And if that's the case, do you have wisdom beyond the planet that you could pull in and help what's going on now? That invisible friend called air is the ancient wisdom you carry. What if you could pull upon this right now? I would like to tell you something, dear ones. Many in this room have. The ones listening to this in the future
will begin this. The very wisdom that I am talking about, this invisible friend you have, is yourself in your own Akash. That, combined with what you would call the creative source, is the secret for peace on earth. You are starting to discover energy beyond that which you would say is the energy you would need to live. This is energy within the human body. These are specific energies that have always been here for your humanness and the biology that you had before you ever came here. If I told you that the energies of the creative source and your body were the same for other life forms all over this galaxy, would you question that? Would you say, well, the other life forms probably were not humanoid? Yes, they were. Other life forms were probably not like us. Yes, they were. And we'll say it again. When you meet them someday, they may look a lot like you. What did you learn that was not from Earth, that you pull in right now in your Akash, and you intuitively are awakening to something that's from the stars? Now, what would that look like? I'll tell you. The astrologers are awakening to quantum astrology. The homeopathists are awakening to esoteric, multidimensional homeopathy, energies beyond what they thought. Some of the most ancient and understood known facilitations are starting to have multidimensional attributes. That is an awakening from the stars. You didn't have it until now, and your Akash is starting to give it to you. This is your best friend. Air is so interesting. Did you know that right now, this particular group, where you are on the planet, is one of the freshest places you can be, with the purest air you could have? The reason? You study in school photosynthesis. You understand the air and carbon dioxide exchange. You understand that Gaia, the trees, are giving you the oxygen that you need for life. You understand that you give them back something they need. But did anyone ever tell you where most of the oxygen on the planet is produced? And if you would say, well, it has to be the forests, you'd be wrong. They're the smallest things that exist, the lichen, all of the moss, the rainforests. They are producing more oxygen than the trees. Therefore, you are in the right place at the right time to go outside while you can and breathe some of the purest oxygen that is being manufactured by your best friend, Gaia. You have another best friend in this metaphor, and it is your Akash. It is giving you the life force that will create something very special on this planet. New information for new health using the energy meridians of the body and so much more. So much more. Energy of the human body will be the secret for longevity and healing someday, more than anything that you have today. Dear ones, there is so much more than you recognize within yourselves that you've never been taught. I want you to leave this place thinking about this. Surrounding you right now, multicolored universe of energies that have your name on it, that walk with you in that which you call your Merkaba, carried partially by you, your biology, your DNA, and even your soul, all mixed together to be something divine,
beyond that which reality which you understand, and is the absolute secret of health and life. This is why, as you discover these things in the future, you won't overpopulate yourselves. You'll have wisdom to know what works and what does not. A whole different way of producing food, electricity, and water. A new paradigm of living for the planet will wipe out all of the fears that you currently have in 3D. You don't know what you don't know. If you can hold this vision and think positively, this positive feeling will carry over even into your next life. And when you're born, your Akash will ring with it. That there's hope, you're here for a reason, and you don't have to suffer. The new generation on this planet is the key to everything that's going to take place. And as time goes on, you will be the new generation. Think of it. And so it is.
I invite all of you to close your eyes and just allow this space to disconnect from any thought that you may have had, and to disconnect from any chatter that might be happening in your brain. And if there is chatter in your brain, we can just acknowledge it and say, wow, beautiful brain. Thank you for all your chatter that you bring me. But we're going into some quiet time because we're going to disconnect from that chatter in our brain. And we're going to have some quiet time where we can connect with the energy of our heart. It's the energy of our heart that wants to communicate to us in this moment. Our beautiful heart that is present every beat throughout the day. Even if we are not aware of it, our heart is beating every moment of every day. And it's there in the silence, waiting to connect when you're ready to listen to the whispers of the silence that it exists in. And each of you has such a unique path. And the compass that guides you on that path is always the silent whisperings from your heart. And the one that guides and connects the heart is connected to the field of the Creator. That creative source that we all came from, and that creative source that we will all merge back into when we're no longer here on this physical plane of beautiful planet Earth. And so we just say thank you to our beautiful heart. Thank you for accompanying us on this amazing journey. And now we allow our heart to receive the love wash that is here. Should you choose to receive it, we allow our heart to now receive that love wash from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. So much you have experienced and seen, heard in these 2 days. I speak, of course, to the audience in front of me and not to the ones who will listen later. But for all of you, listening later and here, I'd like to give you a short metaphoric message. Dear ones, we have given you so many times the idea that light is coming. And that in itself is a metaphor For the light we speak of is enlightenment. And this takes shape in so many ways. You could say that the light is coming in wisdom, in understanding, between human and human. That's not here yet. You can say light is coming in the inventions of the planet, so that electricity can be produced without any resource being used, and food can be grown where food could never be grown before, and there would be no hunger. That's not here yet. And on, you might say, that someday there will be enlightenment even in that which is your governments and the way things work in corporations, and that it will change the face of everything. I'd like to tell you that all of that hangs in the field. It hangs in the field. That means it is your future. For those in the room and for those perhaps listening might understand, but I will tell you, your planet is on a target, a road that has a target on it. And on this road there is something unstoppable, and that's you. There was a time when I said, humanity may do this if it chooses, and you can go back in time and hear this so many times, that you have free choice, dear ones, and if you choose to do this, then it will happen. And at this point, I will tell you, at the beginning of this year, that the snowball is rolling, and you're not going to stop it. And that snowball is white, and it's light. And it may take a little longer to get down the hill than you want. But I have seen this in other civilizations, in other planets of ascension, and some of you have been on them and recognize it, and your old souls here today, because that was the plan, that you would come back and have enough lifetimes of experience to feel it and remember it and know not to be afraid, to be part of the final battle of dark and light, which may surprise you in how it develops. But even in these last 2 days, you've seen perhaps what is going on and the hope of the future. That's why you're here. And those listening to my voice, I will say to you yet again, things are not always what they seem. I want to give you, in closing, a little parable. It's the parable of a man named Woe. He's not actually a man. He could be a woe man, but we call him a man because it's convenient and you understand it better. It's a parable that stretches the imagination of reality, and that's what parables do. In some of mine, I will take you to planets that don't exist and situations that can't happen. But there's a reason. There are things you don't realize, attributes that you do not know about that which we call light. And so to show you what I mean, I'll give you this parable. If you ask a warrior, a soldier, what it's like to fight a battle at night, they will tell you it's not often done. Night battles, and even in current wars, are often with artillery. Very seldom do they meet another soldier on the field at night. Those battles are fought during the day, you say. but sometimes they're not. And if you talk to a warrior of old, where they're only using swords on the battlefield, and you say, what is it like to fight at night? They'll look at you and they say, you don't know who's there. And it's very, very difficult. And it's horror. That's the metaphor of this planet at the moment. You're in the dark. You are still in the dark. And you're fighting battles wildly in the dark. And that's the dysfunction you see. I'll take you to a planet that's very dark. And woe is a warrior. And he's been fighting on this planet for a very long time with a very old rusty sword. And he's been put out onto the field so many times and thought it was his last time, as he would hear noises and think he heard shapes and swing his sword. And he had been wounded a number of times, and he was in the trench once again, ready to go out and do it again. Paint this picture, it's pretty sorrowful, pretty ugly. But the planet itself was dark, and daylight never seemed to come, and it always seemed to be battle after battle with his rusty sword. It may seem funny and perhaps a little goofy what comes next. But a little green man showed up. He spoke funny. And he said to Woe, I have a special saber for you. And Woe said, really? I could use a new one because mine's so old and so rusty. Thank you. And the little green man handed him this. It didn't look like a sword at all until he pressed a button, and out came a lightsaber. Wow. The little green man went away. Woe knew he was going to win this battle, because as soon as he turned that on, he would then be able to swipe his enemy, and he would be chief on the battlefield, and he would be winning this battle, and he wouldn't have to worry anymore. But that's not what he got. When it was time for the warriors to go on the field and they rang the bell and up they came out of the trenches, he raced out into the field and he hit that button and up came the light. And what he saw around him, he didn't expect. All of the warriors that he had never seen before, he'd only heard them before, they showed up. And all around him there was shock, as they saw not him with a saber sword, but the light that it created. And they looked around, and for the first time they saw each other eyeball to eyeball. And they recognized they were all in shabby clothes with rusty blades, and they'd even forgotten what they were doing, and they saw each other as human beings for the first time. And collectively, without a word being spoken, while he was holding that light, they all dropped their swords and looked at each other. And almost every single one of them walked around. For the first time, they could see one another. Didn't even recognize the uniforms. Didn't even know why they were fighting. And it was the beginning of light on that planet. One man. This is a metaphor for you, as goofy as it might sound, of light where there is no light. That's what you get. You don't know how dark it is here until you see the brilliance of the wisdom that is coming. You don't see how dark it is here until someone comes along with ideas that have never been there before. And you go, why didn't we think of this before? With inventions that have never been seen before, that change not just the atmosphere of a technology, but rewrites an economy. Those are the kinds of things that happen with light. Those are the things that are hanging in the field. You've had a glimpse of them in these 2 days, of what is possible on this planet. So I will echo what my partner said earlier. Don't be afraid, because you have that saber sword. And slowly you'll understand how to create the light, what it means, and how to put it in the framework of mastery and not conflict, and how to use it so gently and so softly and so beautifully that you illuminate areas that needed illuminated and they never even knew you were there. Like the one who strikes the match in the dark room, you can't see who it is, but you see all around you. This is the future of this planet, regardless of what you're being told. This is the future of this planet, and old souls are the ones with the experience that they have who will bring it to fruition on this planet in these times. There is no accident you are here. There is no accident that you are hearing these words. Now go from this place or this recording and think about what I have said and understand who you are and how the Creator has set this up and how you have agreed to it and why you're here. In compassion and love, which are the tools of the day, I congratulate you for being here and taking the mantle of this lifetime that may change everything on the planet. I am crying in love with humanity. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It seems as though the subject of today is about things that perhaps you can reframe in your mind, that perhaps were not given to you fully. There is so much hiding. Hiding because it hasn't been exposed yet, or you haven't been aware of it, and yet it's always been there. Like the child who grows up breathing air and then one day he studies what it is. He took it for granted and nobody told him about the molecules in the air, where they came from, and the symbiotic relationship with the rest of the planet. It was just air, he breathed it. There are many things like this. I'm going to give you a metaphor today, and it's one that some of you, most of you, will understand and have seen. You'll understand also as we go what the metaphor eventually is about and what it means. We have done the circle of 12. We're going to do it again today. And what this circle of 12 actually is about is you discovering the bigger you. Even religious leaders, spiritualists, have put God on one side of the veil and you on the other. And there are all kinds of processes that somehow then allow you to touch that face of God in some way that is not here. It's across the veil. And the circle of 12 is one of the first times I have given you a metaphor that continues, that tries to show you that actually it's right in front of you. That veil is actually the bridge between you and the bigger you, your soul. Now, some will say, well, what does that have to do with the veil between us and God? And I'll tell you, your soul is part of the creative source, a major part. If you can touch that which is your soul, you are in that space that mostly is on the other side of the veil. A multi-dimensional space where, like angels and guides and the love of Spirit is right next to you all the time. And we've given you this example over and over and over. That really, truly, Spirit sits on your lap. But that hasn't been the paradigm, has it? Let me show you something. I want you to visualize with me something that most of you have seen. That visualization would have a number of nested boxes. Now, sometimes you will see this, depending on your culture, in decorative boxes that are nested, one smaller, one smaller. You open one, there's another one, it's smaller. Open one, there's another one. Sometimes it's with eggs that are made and manufactured. One egg is big, you go and open it, it is smaller, 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 and they're all decorative and they're all beautiful. So visualize that for a moment because you've seen it. When you get to the smallest one, it's cute. It's fun. Wow, I went through 10 of those to get to this cute little guy. I wonder if he knew he was really in there, if he could talk. So here is the first part of this metaphor. The little box, the littlest one, nested in there, all put together with all of them assembled. That little one is you. You have no awareness of the box around you. It's in the dark, of course. And if somebody told you there was a bigger box you were in, you'd go, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure that you're right. But if there is, it's the veil and God is on the other side. Well, then they say, well, not exactly. There's a bigger box around that. What could that mean? These nested boxes are an awareness. They are boxes of awareness. And we have told you all along that the biggest one, the one that God sees, the one that I see, is the real you. The little one is the nested you. And here's the invitation, and it was always there. We want you to understand that as you start to accept what I am telling you, perhaps instead of what others have told you is the limit of your spirituality or your thinking, is simply surrounded by another box. We have talked about peeling the onion of your reality, where you start to peel it and find the core you. This is the opposite. I'm talking about release. How many of you are willing to say, Dear Spirit, if there is a bigger box that I'm in, show it to me. And that awareness alone starts to disappear the internal boxes. You might have 10 nested boxes and suddenly you've got 3 because you're so much aware of the love of God, of the tools that you have as a human being, that the energy of Gaia is alive and well, and that you actually are in control of your reality. You just dismissed 3 or 4 boxes. Now, what are those boxes? They're what you've been told. Every single one of them represents that which you have been told you are. It isn't just inaccurate, dear ones. Some of that was on purpose. Some of it was also the best that humans had at that moment. But it all told the story of a great big God and a very small you. That part was correct. But no connection. A wall between you. That's what you were taught. If you are involved, perhaps, and invested in some of that which is the organized spiritual systems of the planet, that they will tell you right away, you're small. You're not supposed to be able to touch the face of God. You're not worthy. And so they have all manner of rules that will then help you be worthy, or at least come to God not filled with unworthiness. You start listing them. What do they ask you to do? What if I told you those are boxes? Those are boxes which keeps you from seeing the big one. And you start disappearing them and disappearing them. And you get to that place and you say, what if I could cross the bridge to the real big one? And that one is the soul. Now let me tell you something else about this metaphor, which is magic. As you start to then dissolve the boxes around you, you become the box around you. You get bigger. So a nested set of 10 becomes a nested set of 5. Because the box in the middle is starting to dissolve the boxes around it, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now you've got perhaps just one. Welcome to the circle of 12. So if you followed this, here you are, a much bigger box, nested in one other. There's the soul of the human, which is the big one, and you, the one that's in 3 dimensions that you know well. But you're very close, and you can feel it. You've dismissed all the limiting things that you've been told, and here you are. Crossing that bridge is something we'll do today, and we do it every single Wednesday, and we've done it for almost 100 episodes. All the time, this has been the metaphor of you touching the bigger box. But more than touching it, what happens to you, and I'm going to paint you a picture. When you cross the bridge, that 3-dimensional box is dissolved temporarily. You have to live in 3D. That's who you are. But it doesn't mean that you can't meld with the bigger one or go there anytime you want. Crossing the bridge, going back and forth, finding out some of the most beautiful things that Spirit, the Creator, has for you. Basking in the love that has always been there, without rules, without things you have to do to deserve it. And you start to understand the real picture. The actual core truth is this: God is in love with you and created you in love, and has given you free choice to find that. Not a bunch of rules that say that you're not supposed to. Not a bunch of rules that say you're unworthy. Not a bunch of rules that say that you're doomed as you're born. That was never, ever the core truth. That's the humans making their truth apply to you. That's all human stuff, dear ones. That's humanism 101. Punishment, reward, bad, good. All of those things have nothing to do with the love of the Creator for you. So here you sit and stand, perhaps on the bridge. Perhaps you finally understand that bigger box is you in an alliance with the Creator, your soul. That is the truth. Anytime you want, the Creator has its hand outstretched saying, why don't you come to that bigger box for a while, visit your soul for a while. And sooner or later, they meld together. So every day of your life, you're walking between and inside until they meld together. And that is called ascension. This is where you are right now. In the scheme of this planet, you might say in the planning that you set up a long time ago before you got here. What if this was all true? I want you to sit and feel that love I'm telling you about. Tonight, a little later, we'll go across the bridge. I'll take you there again. And so it is.